everyone, and welcome to the first edition of the HEC Paris Model United Nations, also known as MUNHEC. My name is Mai, and I will be your Secretary General for this conference. MUNHEC is my 8th Model UN conference, but I remember quite well the first MUN I've been to. I was completely lost during the first hours. I know that this will be the first time attending a Model UN conference for a lot of you. So the MUNHEC team and myself have prepared this video to guide you through the basic rules of MUN, as well as show you what an MUN session looks like. Please note that this video is not meant to replace your delegate handbook, so make sure you have carefully read your handbook before continuing to watch this video. With that said, let us begin. Good morning, delegates. It is my pleasure to welcome you to this meeting of the Social, Humanitarian, and Cultural Committee on the topic of promoting gender equality around the world. The chair will now conduct roll call. If you are here, please respond present or present and voting. At the beginning of each day, the chairs will conduct roll call to keep track of the presence and voting status of delegates in the committee. When your country's name is called, you may respond present or present and voting. Responding present means you may abstain from voting on draft resolutions and amendments later on, while responding present and voting means you may not abstain from voting on draft resolutions and amendments. People's Republic of China.
Present.
French Republic.
Present.
Kingdom of Norway.
Present and voting.
Kingdom of Saudi Arabia.
Present and voting.
Federal Republic of Somalia.
Present.
The United States of America.
Present.
Thank you, delegates. The quorum has been reached. We will now begin the session. The quorum is the minimum number of countries that need to be present in the room for debate to start. The chair would now look favorably upon a motion to open debate. Is there any such motion on the floor? Saudi Arabia.
Motion to open debate.
Motions are actions that direct the meeting in a certain direction. A motion to open debate is used at the beginning of the first day to kickstart the discussion. Thank you, delegate. This motion passes under the chair's discretion. The chair would now call on countries in alphabetical order to make their opening speeches. When you hear your country's name, please stand up and make your speech. At MUNHEC 2017, each country is required to make an opening speech. The opening speech is the first impression that you give to the committee. You can use this opportunity to present your country's stance, recall the importance of the topic of the meeting, or call for cooperation on this matter. The speaking time for opening speeches is 1 minute per country. China, you have been recognized.
Honorable chairs, distinguished delegates, as one of the world's leading states for gender equalities, it is a great honor for China to be in these meetings of the Social, Humanitarian, and Cultural Committees on the topic of promoting gender equalities around the world. Having been in the fight against gender inequalities for more than 40 years, China believes that the most effective solutions to achieve gender equalities worldwide is through education, especially primary education. In China, women enjoy the same rights and opportunities as men to receive education. Such rights and opportunities are clearly defined in China's education laws, compulsory education laws, and vocational education law. The state takes concrete measures and action to ensure that girls receive 9-year compulsory educations and that women have more opportunities to receive secondary and higher educations. Our government has unceasingly increased its input into compulsory educations in the countryside so as to improve the chance for girls to receive compulsory education.
At the beginning of the first day, after the opening speeches, the chairs will open the General Speakers List, or GSL. The GSL is the default speaking mode at MUNHEC 2017. During the GSL, you can talk about anything as long as it is related to the topic of the meeting. To be added to the GSL, you can raise your placard when the chairs ask, or write a note to the chairs, which can be done at any time during the meeting. After you have made your speech, you can ask to be re-added to the GSL. In fact, you can ask to be re-added to the GSL as many times as you want, as long as you still want to make a speech. Indeed, once the GSL is open, it stays open until the end of the meeting. We will now move on to the general speakers list. The default speaking time for the GSL is 1 minute. Are there any motions to change the speaking time for the GSL? Norway?
Motion to change the speaking time to 1 minute and 30 seconds.
Thank you, Delegate. This motion passes under the Chair's discretion. The GSL is now open. Delegates wishing to be added to the GSL, please raise your placard. Norway, Saudi Arabia, France. That will be it for the moment. Delegates wishing to include their name in the GSL, please do so by sending a note to the chairs. Norway, you have been recognized.
Thank you, Chair. Honorable Chairs, fellow delegates, Norway is highly concerned of the problem of gender inequality around the world. Norway is proud of our effectiveness in protecting the gender equality around our countries. The delegate, however, feels like some member states, although their situation is really serious, they show little or no effort to solve the issue. So this delegate would like to urge other member states to join hands and fully tackle the problem of gender inequality. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. How would you like to yield your time? During the GSL, if you have finished your speech before your allotted time has elapsed, you can yield your remaining time in 3 different ways. Yielding to the chairs means you do not want to use your remaining time. You want to move to the next speaker. Yielding to another delegate means you want to allow another delegate to make a speech during your remaining time. Finally, yielding to points of information means you want to spend your remaining time answering questions from other delegates in the room. In this example, the delegate has yielded his time to points of information.
The delegate would like to yield to any and all questions.
The delegate of Norway has yielded his time to points of information. Are there any points of information for the delegate? A point of information is a question directed at another delegate. You can raise a point of information to request clarifications from another delegate, provided that this delegate has yielded their time to points of information. Saudi Arabia.
Can the delegate please elaborate on the solutions that he wishes to propose to the committee to address the problem of gender inequality?
Thank you, delegate. Answering your question, Norway has 3 suggestions for this issue. First, we have policies to protect not only men, but not only women, but men also. Secondly, we have the propaganda, such as video clips or images to promote this issue online. And lastly, we have we put it in the education program for primary schools.
Thank you, delegate. The floor is now open. Are there any points or motion on the floor at this moment? France.
Point of inquiry.
At any time during the meeting, you can raise a point of inquiry to ask the chairs a question about the rules of procedure. Yes,
What
delegate.
are the majorities in order in this committee?
There are 2 types of majorities in this committee. The simple majority, which applies for voting on motions, is 4 countries. And the supermajority, which applies for voting on draft resolutions and amendments, is 5 countries. Does that answer your question, delegate?
Yes, thank you, Chair.
A moderated caucus is a break in the GSL. Moderated caucuses are used to focus the debate on a specific subtopic. To raise a moderated caucus, you need to specify the overall duration of the moderated caucus, the speaking time per speaker, and the subtopic. Once the time for a moderated caucus has elapsed, the House will move back to the GSL unless another motion is raised. The floor is once again open. Are there any points or motions on the floor at this moment? China?
China were to raise motions for moderate caucus with durations of 10 minutes, 1 minute speaking times on topic of the importance of primary education in promoting gender equality.
Thank you, delegate. Are there any other motions or points on the floor? France?
Motion for moderate caucus for the duration of 15 minutes, 90 seconds speaking time on the topic of female genital mutilation.
Thank you, delegate. Are there any other points or motions on the floor? Seeing none, we'll now move on to voting procedure on the motion raised by the delegate of France for a moderated caucus of 15 minutes with 90 seconds speaking time on the topic of female genital mutilation. Delegates wishing to vote in favor of this motion, please raise your placard. Delegates wishing to vote against this motion? This motion passes. France, would you like to be the first or the last speaker?
The first, please.
France, you have been recognized.
Thank you, Chair. Honorable Chair, distinguished delegate.
Point of personal privilege.
A point of personal privilege can be raised whenever you experience a discomfort that interferes with your ability to participate in the committee. For example, if the room is too cold or too hot, or if you need to use the bathroom. You can also raise a point of personal privilege to ask a delegate to speak louder because you cannot hear them. This is the only instance when you can interrupt a delegate during their speech. Delegate of USA, you have been recognized.
Audibility. Too soft.
Thank you, delegate. Delegate of France, would you mind speaking louder?
Yes. As a European country, France holds in high regard the values of gender equality, women advancement, and therefore strongly condemn any activities that violate such beliefs. FGM is an unforgivably cruel practice to anybody, let alone women. In this 21st century, this practice still exists in some African countries, especially Somalia. France urges this committee to take immediate action to save those innocent girls and women who are at high risk of FGM. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, delegate.
The right of reply.
You can raise a right of reply if you feel that a delegate has attacked your personal or your country's integrity during their speech. Once the chairs have recognized you, you will have 30 seconds to explain why you feel offended. After you have exposed your arguments, the concerned delegate may or may not issue a public apology. Delegate of Somalia, please stand up and state your right.
The delegate of Somalia is extremely appalled at the remark made by the delegate of France, or rather, a P5 imperialist. In the past, we as a nation are well aware that Somalia has one of the highest rate of FGM practice. However, if the delegate of France is updated with the news, like all diplomats at the United Nations should be, then she should know that our Somalian Ministry of Women Affairs has released a statement that the time has come for us to eradicate this bad practice and protect the rights of girls and women in Somalia. We in Somalia believe that we must not dwell in history in the past, but rather look into a more positive future. And with that, we believe that as UN representatives, we must maintain a long-term vision, and we must believe that changes cannot happen in a split second, but rather in the coming decades or in the coming century.
Thank you, Delegate of Somalia. Delegate of France, would you like to issue a public apology to the Delegate of Somalia?
The delegate of France refused to issue the apology. The aforementioned speech based entirely on actual facts, and France believes she has not offended any country or delegate. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Delegate of France. The time for this moderated caucus has elapsed. Are there any points or motion on the floor at this moment? Somalia.
Motion for an unmoderated caucus for 10 minutes.
An unmoderated caucus is another type of break in the GSL. During unmoderated caucuses, the rules of procedure are suspended. Delegates can move freely around the room and talk to each other directly. Unmoderated caucuses are used to lobby and form blocks, as well as produce working papers and draft resolutions. Thank you, Delegate. Are there any other points of motion on the floor? Seeing none, we'll now move on to voting on the motion raised by Somalia for an unmoderated caucus of 10 minutes. Delegates wishing to vote in favor of this motion, please raise your placard. This motion passes. We will now enter an unmoderated caucus for 10 minutes. The time for this unmoderated caucus has elapsed. The chair would now like to announce that the draft resolution submitted by Somalia is on the floor. The chair would look favorably upon a motion to introduce this draft resolution. Is there any such motion on the floor? Somalia?
Motion to introduce draft resolution.
A draft resolution is a document that summarizes the different solutions that have been debated upon during the meeting. After a draft resolution is submitted to and approved by the chairs, it needs to be introduced to the House via a motion to introduce draft resolution. That is in order. Is there any other points of motion on the floor? Seeing none, we'll now move on to voting on the motion raised by the delegate of Somalia to introduce draft resolution. Delegates in favor of this motion, please raise your placard. Delegates against this motion, please raise your placard. This motion passes. The chair would now invite two sponsors of this draft resolution to come up and present the draft resolution to the House. You have 5 minutes to read the operative clauses out loud and defend your draft resolution.
Clause 1 emphasizes that awareness raising, community mobilization, education, and training are needed to ensure that all key actors and government officials, including law enforcement, healthcare providers, and religious leaders, work together to eliminate attitudes and harmful practices.
5 minutes later.
We believe that our draft resolution fully addresses concrete measures to tackle FGM from all angles, and that is why we believe the House should vote in favor of this draft resolution.
Thank you, Delegate. The chairs will now entertain a 3-minute Q&A session on this draft resolution. After a draft resolution is introduced to the House, there is a Q&A session during which the House can ask the sponsors of the draft resolution questions about this draft resolution. It is usually followed by a moderated caucus to discuss the draft resolution. Delegates wishing to ask a question to the sponsors of this draft resolution, please raise your placard. France?
And the delegate of Somalia specify on the operative clause 4 on the female genital mutilation practice in Somalia. Thank you, Delegate.
After introduction, this draft resolution will from now on be referred to as Draft Resolution 1.1. The chairs would now look favorably upon a motion for a moderated caucus to discuss this draft resolution. Is there any such motion on the floor? Saudi Arabia?
The delegate of Saudi Arabia moves the committee to a moderated caucus for 10 minutes, speaking time 1 minute each speaker, to discuss draft resolution 1.1.
Thank you, Delegate. That is in order. The time for this moderated caucus has elapsed. Are there any points or motions on the floor at this moment? USA?
Motion to move into voting procedure.
When the House feels there has been enough debate on a draft resolution, it can move on to voting on this draft resolution via a motion to move into voting procedure. Normally, this happens after the House has submitted various amendments to the draft resolution. Thank you, Delegate. Are there any other points of motion on the floor? Seeing none, we'll now vote on the motion raised by the delegate of the USA to move into voting procedure on draft resolution 1.1. Delegates in favor of this motion, please raise your placard. Delegates against this motion, please raise your placard. This motion passes. We will now enter voting procedure on draft resolution 1.1. There will be no entry in or exit from the room during the vote. Note passers, please secure the doors. Note passing will be temporarily suspended. Delegates wishing to vote in favor of this draft resolution, please raise your placards. Delegates wishing to vote against this draft resolution, please raise your placard. Delegates wishing to abstain, please raise your placard. With 4 votes yes, 0 votes against, and 2 abstentions, this draft resolution passes. Clapping is in order. A committee can pass more than one draft resolution. If there are more than one draft resolution, the meeting will continue after a draft resolution is passed. Otherwise, the House can put an end to the meeting via a motion to adjourn debate. The chair would now look favorably upon a motion to adjourn debate. Is there any such motion on the floor? Delegate of the USA?
Motion to adjourn debate.
Thank you, Delegate. This motion passes under the chair's discretion. That's it for this tutorial. I hope that it helps you better understand how a MUN session works. Do not hesitate to send us a message if you have any other question. Thank you and see you soon.